The Convention for Democratic South Africa CODESA negotiations were meant to ease the tensions in the country ahead of the first democratic elections in 1994. As South Africa licked its wounds from the brutal system of apartheid, a new course and journey for the country was on everybody's lips. But that was nearly derailed by the 17 June 1992 Boipatong Massacre.
Let me warn Mr. De Klerk. The introduction of anti-democratic measures today will result in a defiance campaign with me leading that defiance campaign.
It was on this day, 3 decades ago, when a group of about 300 heavily armed men descended in this area, slaying everyone on their path and leaving scores of lifeless bodies behind. And for many survivors, 10 p.m. on that day still lingers in their memories like yesterday. 33-year-old Mita Molete was only 3 years old when she witnessed her father dragged outside and shot to death multiple times. The toddler was stabbed in the head, an injury that has left her confined to a wheelchair for the rest of her life.
Before I take a mewaka, Ndadwaka, according to mewaka, they were explaining a thing.
Before they attacked my mother, they attacked my father first. They dragged him outside because there was blood all over the floor. Then after that, one person approached my mother to attack her. As they tried to attack my mother rushed to protect me. They took a machete and attacked me. My mother used her hands to protect me the first time, but the second time they struck me on the head.
Maria Muswitsa was only 14 years old at the time, and her family also was not spared. She lost her brother and uncle. And on that night, they were all grieving the death of her mother.
After going to bed around 10, a police truck stopped at the street. After that, we heard the sound of windows breaking, and we heard them say, we hid under the bed with my pregnant sister. My brother and uncle were deep asleep. At that time, they stepped the bed I was under. I moved a bit, then they searched everywhere in the house. White people covered their faces with black ashes. Others were wearing Zulu attire.
And even today, she is still struggling to come to terms with wounds left by that tragic event.
Because I am still hurt because Boipatong was the reason why the CODESA negotiations fell. But for us, till now, we still have traumas. It is history, but talking to you now, I still remember it vividly.
At the time, the apartheid government labeled the massacre a black-on-black violence. But for the victims, it was a machinery of the apartheid regime. Suspicions were that these attacks were aimed at undermining the delicate process of negotiations aimed at paving the way to democracy. At the negotiating table, amongst others were the National Party under FW De Klerk, with the ANC led by Nelson Mandela. And 2 years ago, South Africa's last apartheid president, the late FW De Klerk, opened wounds of the past.
There's a difference between calling something a crime, like genocide is a crime. Apartheid cannot be, that's why I'm saying this, cannot be, for instance, compared with genocide.
But he later retracted his view, although outrage had already erupted.
De Klerk is a murderer. De Klerk has got blood on his hands. The people of Boipatong are turning in their graves.
The Boipatong Massacre remains a central point in the struggle for democracy of this country. It's a period that will always be remembered as a painful stain, as many people lost their lives in the conflict that formed part of the struggle to liberate South Africa from the shackles of the apartheid regime. Ntlantla Kgatlhane, SABC News in Boipatong.